Well, welcome all to VG Emporium, video game music and more. I hope you all had a fun and interesting Halloween last week. And as I understand it, things got pretty interesting here last week with Wright and Laurel, the two curators that happen to live down in the basement of VG Emporium. Their choice, not mine. That one's a long story that I don't think we have the time or that we really should get into. I'm actually of the mind to possibly even just kick them out because they apparently brought that weird creature thing Gadrelf back from the dead, fortunately just as a ghost, but it appears that he doesn't hold any malice towards Mumba Chuamba or I, just more obsessed with Garfield and lasagna, so he just went off and did his thing, so they're gonna stay down there. I don't even think I can really kick him out if I wanted to. So now, to the topic of today, as you may have seen on the title, is beatboxing and BGM, or more particularly BGM that I happen to like beatboxing every once in a while, and these are the ones I'm going to share with you, are the ones that I do the most often. So for as long as I can remember, I was always just making weird noises as just like a little kid, and then eventually when I discovered video games and started playing them, I started imitating the sounds I heard in that. And then, go fast forward a few years to high school, and I started to kind of actually imitating the more percussive sounds I'd heard in the video game music, as well as discovering drum and bass and electronic music, and that just kind of unlocked something in my brain to where I started actually just making like rhythmic sounds and everything, and actually incorporating melodies into it with some help of a couple remixes off of Overlooked Remix by Tomapella, where he just did nothing but acapella, but they were multiple acapella tracks as opposed to just one thing. And my brain just figured out, I'll just do everything all at once. No software required. Basically for the last, 15 years plus, I've been doing this, and for a good 10 years, I was doing it, hosting at an open mic, so I'd just slot myself in for 10 minutes and just do something like a cover, and then just like improv right off the top of my head, so that kind of really honed in what I was able to do, but I never really pushed myself forward to become part of like a beatboxing community or anything, because I don't know, I just, it was a cool idea, it's just I don't care for the vibe it gave off, just really too bro-ish. So I just mostly kept it to myself and my friends and people who were there at open mics and stuff. And recently, within the past few years, I've started to kind of really post myself doing it out there. As an example, this last week, for each day after the release of the Halloween episode, I actually posted a video of myself beatboxing each song that I'm going to be playing for you today. Starting off with Investigation Opening 2001 from Pheonix Wright Ace Attorney, known in Japan as Gyakuten Saiban, composed by Masakazu Sugimori and arranged by Naoto Tanaka under the alias Akemi Kimura. And this one actually came up in episode 39, an inexplicably cute sound, in which I had my friend Wade on as a guest, and we actually, doodled and beatboxed this together on there. Not exactly beatbox, more just kind of doodled it. But yeah, no, this is one of those songs that when we get together, this one inevitably comes up. And I played this game via emulator because I never owned a DS. And the music in the game, in Pheonix Wright, is just, just really, really charming and addicting to my brain. Especially this track. It just kind of, it got in there, it stuck, and it's just one of those ones where if I'm walking around or something, it'll start playing in my head, and then I'll just start kind of just beatboxing it to myself. Because then it's really easy because it's just so syncopated. It's just I'd like to point this out. Take a listen. It's maybe a touch easy to miss, but it's this kind of trailing distortion from that chime sound, and it's kind of a, and it's just that little artifact that kind of just makes it into every time I beatbox it to myself, or I'm doing it with Wade or something. It just kind of, that little artifact comes out. It's it's always the strange little things that stick out to me. So now the Pheonix Wright games. The first game came out in 2001 on the Game Boy Advance, only in Japan, as Gyakuten Saiban, and then got released in 2004 on the DS in English. And basically how it goes is it's a graphical adventure game. So instead of moving your character around on a screen and investigating things, you're just looking at a static image screen, so showing you a scene or area, and then you're just clicking on things to investigate, collecting evidence to then go to the cases, which is the main point of the game, to prove your client innocent of the accusations saying they murdered this person, they did this thing, and it's just ridiculous and really nice sprite work on the big old characters and stuff. And this series has spun off multiple games, all the way up to even having a game where you play as your main antagonist rival, Miles Edgeworth, where you basically do actually control the character moving around, and it is like a point-and-click adventure. Now let me tell you about the composers here, starting off with Masakazu Sugimori. He was the original composer for the Game Boy Advance version in 2001, but he actually got his start at Capcom being a program check for the game Breath of Fire 4, and then Gaika Tenseiban being his first musical credit, and then he would go on to do the music for Beautiful Joe, would compose Mew music for the DS version of Pheonix Wright, Ace Attorney, or Gaika Tenseiban for all the cases in the game, and then Ghost Trick, Phantom Detective, Professor Layton versus Ace Attorney, and then his latest credit being Murder by Numbers in 2020. And now Naoto Tanaka, under the alias Akemi Kimura, got started doing arrangements for Rock Band Complete Works, where he arranged the music for the original Mega Man games, so more particularly Mega Man 4, 5, and 6 on the PS1. Did sound for Mega Man X, 5, and 6, would go on to do arrangements for this game, Pheonix Wright, Ace Attorney, and then would go on to do various other Pheonix Wright, Ace Attorney games. Would go on to be the music director for the Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, music arrangement for The Legend of Korra, and additional composition for Bayonetta 2. So enough of my jibber jabber. Let's get on to the next track here. And it's another Capcom goodie, Stone Man from Mega Man 5, composed by Mari Yamaguchi. That was Stone Man from Mega Man 5, composed by Mari Yamaguchi. And this is going to sound odd, but hey, I'm an odd one. This, alongside Mega Man 4 soundtrack, is probably my favorite music from the NES Mega Man series, so 1 through 6. Probably part of the reasoning behind that being that Mega Man 4 was my first Mega Man, and Mega Man 5 was probably the one I spent the most time with. For you see, I was born on the same day, in the same year, that the original Mega Man had released on the Famicom in Japan. So, by the time I was old enough to actually be able to start playing video games, 4 and 5 are the ones that had been out, and those are the ones I got to play. Mega Man 2, I only got to see played once at somebody's house, and, never got to see it again until later years. And then Mega Man 1, never actually got to play it until I emulated it, years later, high school. Same with 6. And I can understand why people don't really care for these two, because, Mega Man 2 was big improvement over the first one, and is almost like a perfect game. And then Mega Man 3 comes along, and it's just even more so, and they're both musically just really awesome. And then 4 comes along and adds the charge shot and doesn't really do much different. And then 5 is just kind of is. But the way to look at it is that 5, the team had really got a grasp of how everything works together. So it actually is a pretty tight game if you think about it. And one of the things that gives it bad marks on this game is, of course, the soundtrack, because it is not like the rest of the Mega Man music. It doesn't have those harmonies and all the structure that that 2 brought in, and that 3 built on, and then 4 had that going on and just a little darker tone. This one is just doing its own thing, really jazzy, kind of almost jazz fusion. No, I don't know how to explain it, but I like it. So much so that I could, if I really put myself to it, could beatbox the whole soundtrack, 1 loop each, straight through without stopping. I've kind of done it for myself, Haven't really done it with in front of anybody. Haven't recorded myself doing it, but if I really, like I said, if I really put myself to it and, just kind of practice it, I could probably just do a whole run of it. But there is one in particular that I really enjoy doing, which is Gravity Man's theme, but I did present that one back on episode 4, the Overlooked Remix one, which is the remix done by Tomapella, who I mentioned earlier, Tom Miller, who I've actually confirmed who that is, Tom Miller, who actually did a few Game Boy Advance soundtracks, and I might have to bring some of his music on in the future. But the second one behind that is Stone Man's theme. This one's just got a lot of interesting things going on, because it has the main melody going on, has that high-pitched kind of square wave stuff going on. The bass is nice and funky, and then the second half it brings back those harmonizations I was talking about that Mega Man music is so known for. And so when I beatbox this one, I definitely kind of cut out that high-pitched, kind of doodlings going on, and stick with the melody, can get a little bit of the bass line, the percussion, I kind of don't really shuffle as much. It's just how my brain just kind of automatically said, okay, this is how it's going to work. If you want to just do it straight shot, this is how it works. If you want to add those little flourishes and extra bits back in there, you really got to think about it. I don't really have a better way to explain it. Though it's a totally different story if I'm just going off the very top of my head, not worried about any structure, melodies, or anything, just doing pure, percussion. Or just using, various electronic musics that I've heard in the past, as kind of basses. So, drum and bass, a lot of Aphex Twin, Square Pusher. I can just get wacky. But now, back to this music. Let me tell you about the composer Mari Yamaguchi. She got her start arranging the music for UN Squadron to the SNES, composed Super Ghouls and Ghosts, The Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse, Mega Man 5, Breath of Fire, Final Fight 2, arranged the music of Street Fighter 2 for the TurboGrafx 16 or PC Engine over there in Japan, and then her final credit, at least as far as video game music goes, was one of the Robot Masters on Mega Man 10. And a little interesting thing of note is that during her time being a composer for Capcom, she was part of the in-house band called Alpha Lila. So now we're coming up to actually a pair of songs that I've had the most experience with performing at, the open mic I hosted. So I said 2. They're pretty much linked. This is Hydrocity, or Hydrocity if you prefer, Acts 1 and 2, from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. And yes, this game has a mess of composers tied to it, but these particular tracks I'm going to credit to the Sega sound team, most particularly Sachio Ogawa, by, some of the things I found. Could be Masayuki Nagao. Either way, the music coming up is New Jack Swing as F. That was Hydrocity, or Hydrocity if you prefer, Acts 1 and 2, from Sonic the Hedgehog 3, composed by the Sega sound team, more possibly Sachio Ogawa and or Masayuki Nagao. Hell, could even be that one did Act 1 and the other did Act 2. I don't know. That's a rabbit hole I don't have time to go down right now. One thing I do know, for myself at least, is that these two tracks are like the best example of the two-act theme remix thing within, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. The Angel Island acts give us give us our first taste of that, because we weren't expecting that. Like Angel Island Act 1, we're expecting, okay, this is the music. I like it. This is gonna go, and then we get to Act 2, and it's just like a total remix of that, and it's like, whoa! And then you come up to Hydrocity, and it's just this funky New Jack Swing, and you're expecting a remix of the second act. You're not expecting something, and then it just hits you real hard. And then after this, the other act remixes are almost just kind of slight patch changes, maybe a little changes to the arrangement, but nothing as drastic as this. Then again, I could be blowing Dark Wind out my rear, but, this is my opinion. But, these two made such an impact on my little brain that, these became, the most beatbox VGM, at open mics for me. Mostly because of, this, change. Act 1's nice, slow, groovy, and then the second one just comes up nice, fast, really, add some differences in there, so it's I don't know, it's a really cool challenge. These two are ones I can get really complex with, because I can add in all the little flourishes that are in there and all the weird cool things that are in that. So now to the composers. I did just now take a little time to research this, and I was not able to confirm solidly who composed for Act 1. It's between these three: Sachio Ogawa, Sirocco Jones, who is part of the Michael Jackson team, and this third one's very speculative, just going off a VGMDB forum chain that I just dug into, possibly Masanori Hikichi. Now, this one does make a little sense because he did work alongside Masayuki Nagao at Cube, which was a game sound company, is a game sound company still. So, it's very much a possibility, because there were a few other uncredited composers beyond the list of, the Sega sound team and Michael Jackson sound team that were already listed. So now, I was able to confirm that Masayuki Nagao did arrange Act 2, so I will go down the list of things that he has done. Starting off with Battle Golfer Yui, Toki Going Ape Spit, Aihara Manada, Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master, Jurassic Park, Sonic Chaos, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, which was basically a reskin of Puyo Puyo, so a lot of that music was arrangements of Puyo Puyo music, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Sonic Drift, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic Drift 2, Space Invaders Evolution, and then Rainbow Islands Evolution on the PSP. So, whereas I said these two pair of songs was a nice challenge, a really cool challenge to learn, figure out for myself. There is another song that was much more of a challenge, just because of so many things going on, which I'm actually not going to play for you next. I'm going to save that one for later. Instead, I'm just going to play for you a nice little fun one that actually has a couple nice memories attached to them. This is It's a Confrontation from Hexion, composed by Yuji Takanouchi, Junya Nakano, and Satoko Miyawaki. That was It's a Confrontation from Hexion, composed by Yuji Takanouchi, Junya Nakano, and Satoko Miyawaki. And what this is an arcade falling blocks puzzle game made by Konami Whereas instead of having the tetraminos, which are like those little blocks that are in Tetris, you have hexagons. And so this game is actually a variant based off of Hextris, which itself is a variant off of Tetris. So, it's all the same game in the end. And this is actually one of the first arcade VGM packs I downloaded off of VGM Rips onto Modizer, which is my app that I use to listen to all my VGM files, like .vgm, .nsf, .spc, you have it, you name it, it can play it. You may have noticed that this sounds a little different from most Konami arcade games you've probably played or heard, whereas most of them are either FM in the early days or like the bombastic sample-based stuff you hear on like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or their other beat-em-ups in games. And that is due to the Konami 051649, also known as the Sound Creative chip, which is a chip developed by Konami alongside Toshiba for a lot of their MSX games for the MSX, of course, the MSX computer. And it provides 5 channels of wavetable, and Konami being Konami created their own just like distinct wavetable sound, and it's just really, really cool sounding. And it's actually, if you remember playing a lot of Konami Game Boy games, some of these waveforms may sound familiar. And, eventually I want to do an episode focused on the MSX and its multiple sound sources. So all the way, back to the AY chip, all the way up to the mighty Moon sound. But now, some nice little stories connected to the music of this game. So as I said, this is one of the first arcade packs I downloaded onto Modizer, which I had gotten when I first got my iPhone 4, which was back in like late 2010. And I've listened to this soundtrack a lot. I mean, I don't know if I'd probably say it's one of my favorites. I really enjoy it. And so on my backpacking trip on 2014, I was, of course, listening to this, and there was a point where I was in Warsaw, Missouri, of all places, and I was at this time staying with a group of peoples called the 12 Tribes, who I had met previously back in, Valley Center near Vista, California, down by San Diego, and, that's a totally different story altogether, but I was staying with these people, and, they had rooms separated for the single brothers, as they're called. And one day I was just kind of getting ready to go into work and help out in the wood shop they had there in Warsaw. And one of the brothers was in there with me, and he just kind of heard me beatboxing under my breath this song. I was beatboxing this song, and he was like, "Hey, do you have some kind of radio player on you or something?" Because they didn't really generally have these things around. They weren't down to the level of Amish. They had cell phones and technology and stuff around. They just didn't really carry around personal technology stuff. And that was just kind of a cool moment to think whoa, I tricked this guy. But it happened before, way back in high school when I was first discovering this ability. I think it was English 3, and I was just kind of beatboxing myself while I was writing, and somebody's like, "Hey, somebody playing music in here?" And I just no, that was me, and I think I kind of just impressed my teacher at that point. So hey. Now, as for the second little story, that is unrelated to beatboxing, but is related to more travels, and that would be in 2015 while I was in Japan. I was walking around Shinjuku at night and just happened upon this one game center. I couldn't find it again afterwards, but I was just checking it out. Saw this guy just going blazing on poppin' music and all the different arcade games going on, and I just find this one that's just kind of hanging out by itself, and it had I can't remember the amount. It was 20-something thousand games in one. It was just this arcade cabinet that just had thousands and thousands and thousands of just random arcade games on it. And so I was just cycling through them. And one of the ones I saw in there was Hexion. And I was like, "Oh, I got to try this, actually play this." Because at this point I was really into this soundtrack. So, hey, I popped some yen in and played a few rounds and had my fun with that. And then, like I said, I left the place and I couldn't find it again in those last few weeks I was there. It was ugh. I wanted to play that cabinet again, see what else was on there. Might still have the photo of it in somewhere in my cloud storage or something. I might see if I could find it and post it. So now the composer, starting with Yuji Takanouchi, I've already talked about a couple times on the show. Just to kind of name off of the big ones that he's done. He's done X-Men, Namachuke 68 on the Sharp X68K, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake with a few others, SD Snatcher, Ace Combat X, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and the most recent game being Dragon Quest Keishi Keishi as sound design. Up next, we got Junya Nakano, and he also got started doing X-Men, Asterix, Hexion this game, Martial Champion, and then he actually made the move over to Squaresoft and was one of the many composers that helped out with Tobal No. 1, Front Mission Gun Hazard, and then he went to work on Front Mission Alternative, was one of the few composers on Final Fantasy X, Musashi Samurai Legend, Final Fantasy IV on the DS, Final Fantasy IV the after years, he did all the compositions on that, and the most recent game I could find is Final Fantasy X or X and X2, HD remaster in 2016. And that finally brings us to Satoko Miyawaki, and he doesn't have much on him, but he was part of the original arcade staff for Parodius, had a special thanks in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Tournament Fighters from 93, so it could either have been the SNES or Mega Drive version. And then as far as audio credits, he's done Aureus, Hexion, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Tournament Fighters as a voice actor, Gaiapolis, and Fantastic Journey. So now my next track I got for you is kind of in the same league as Mega Man 5 as far as like the soundtrack not being so much cared for, but hey, I really like it. So up next I got Successor of Fate, Just Belmonts theme from Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, composed by Soshiro Hokkai. That jam was Successor of Fate, Just Belmont's theme, from Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, composed by Soshiro Hokkai. And so as to my statement as saying that the soundtrack is not all that well regarded, or wasn't all that well regarded, I'd imagine that's like, some opinions have changed after nearly 20 years, but I can understand it because, compared to the game that came out before it, Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which had a, lot more symphonic sound and the samples were a lot, as clean as they could be on a Game Boy Advance. This one was just purely like using the DMG sound chip with like a little bit of assistance of the direct sound with like the percussion and maybe some, other samples that were of low quality. And, from what I understand, it's, due to using the, kind of more simpler sound, they were able to actually brighten up the graphics of it. Like, so if you look at it compared to Circle of the Moon, it's, sprites aren't as big, but they're a lot more brighter and vibrant. So like, if you had a regular GBA, the handheld, like the fucking oval one, like you could see it a lot better if you didn't have good light. But one common thing I've seen is that, from people who don't like the sound of it, they like the compositions. But I happen to be one of those folks that happen to like the compositions and the sound of this game. And probably, obviously, my favorite track from this entire OST is this theme right here. And I say it's a pretty damn strong start because, like, it's the first song that you hear when you're actually playing the game proper after you're through all the preamble and everything. And it's just so many little things I can name that, like, just kind of draw me to it. It's just like its sense of timing, its sound, like its composition, of course. Like, it sounds like it's kind of off, but, that's that dissonance in there. And, it's just one of those ones I kind of keep coming back to. And actually, a few weeks ago, Mustin posted the question on Twitter, like, what is your favorite Castlevania song? And I don't couldn't quite name a favorite, but I named one that I keep coming back to, which is this one. And Mustin, if you don't know, is one hell of a musician, a producer for the One Ups, which is a remix band. They're all tied to OC Remix. And actually, the One Ups just announced that they're going to be releasing their 20th year anniversary vinyl, 20 years of just doing remixes together, this band. And Mustin has been the producer for many years on this, and he's helping put this all together as well. And the trailer they put out for it is pretty ridiculous, so I suggest you go check it out. But yeah, his question just basically reaffirmed the thing, like, this is the one track I keep coming back to, and I beatbox for myself. And but one of the major things I think I can pinpoint to, what keeps bringing me back to this track is actually its main kind of hook, if you would call that. I don't really know how to explain music stuff, but it's coming up right here. It's the beginning of the track, and it plays halfway through. Yeah, oh yeah, here we go. It's coming up right here. It's so damn good. I just can't explain it. I just love it. It's so good. And then the best part is that shortly after this bit, it brings it back in with kind of this little breakdown. It's coming right here. Damn. It's just keep having this very specific memory of when I remember working at Denny's when I was still in high school, and I remember just thinking about this song for some reason, and just because that one part, that breakdown part is I don't know. It's like I said, I just can't explain it. And Soshiro Hokkai is the one to thank for giving me one of my perma earworms. He has a pretty small list of things that he's worked on. He got to start doing Nagano Winter Olympics 98 in 1997. Suikoden 2, he did event sound effects. And then seems like Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance was his first actual solo project, and then went on to do Aria of Sorrow, which many people's really liked because it brought back that symphonic sound that Circle of the Moon had. Nano Breaker, Castlevania Double Pack, Chibi Robo Ziplash, and his final credit I could find being sound effects for Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn in 2019, which actually kind of leads nicely into the next track I got set up here for you. It's that one extra challenging song I was talking about while talking about Hydrocity. This is Ripplefield 1 from Kirby's Dreamland 3, composed by Jun Ishikawa. That amazingly delightful little song you heard was Ripplefield 1 from Kirby's Dreamland 3, composed by Jun Ishikawa. And this one, while at open mic, if I wanted to impress people, this is the one that I pulled out. And it still boggles me as to how like my brain figured this one out, because the best way I can explain it is that, you know, I get the arpeggiations going, I can get the melody. I can't sustain the the notes, but I get like the melody, you know, the out at there, and then the percussion going as well at the same time, and then a little bit of the bass line, I think. Like I said, I kind of get lost in the moment when I do it. And like I said earlier, I did share a video of this on Twitter and Instagram, but let me do a little sample of it for you here. I'm going to do this second half of it coming up right here. So it's going to be a little rough, but, you know, enjoy. Like I said, quick and rough, but, you know, you get the idea. Doesn't help that my mouth is pretty dry right now. And I do miss having a whole big-ass sound system just to do this, to like really blast it out and catch all the nuances and everything. But yeah, whenever I had a little extra pep in my step, I just pull this one out because it was just a fun challenge for my brain. And, you know, I'd kind of improve on it each time. It's, like I said, it's been a while since I've done it, so like this and the video I probably did is a little rough. Now, Kirby's Dreamland 3 is one I actually played at this place called Game Country. It was a game shop in Auburn, which was the town I was living at in the time, pre-2002. And yeah, they had all these TVs set up with different consoles, you know, SNES, Sega Genesis, NES, SNES, NES, PlayStation even. But yeah, I played Kirby's Dreamland 3 because I remember enjoying Kirby's Dreamland on the NES, like, to death. I played that one just nonstop. And yeah, it was okay. Like, you know, it's a little slower. You know, I really like the visual style. Like, it's all that kind of like that etchy kind of crayon, almost like how like, you know, Yoshi's Island looked, but a lot more like, you know, everything was like kind of wiggling around. Like, it was, I don't know how to best put it, but like, yeah, kind of like, you know, it was like almost like being animated. Like, you know, even while it was standing still, it was like somebody was kind of flipping through pages, animating like a little drawing they had done. And the music, you know, like I said earlier, just amazingly delightful, and that is all thanks to Jun Ishikawa. And this guy is, you know, basically the music lead for HAL Laboratories, who is the company that, you know, developed Kirby, you know, within Nintendo, or I'm not really sure how that all works. But let's see what he has done. Starting in 1990 is Space Guard SDF, Adventures of Lolo 3, the new Ghostbusters 2 on NES, Hyperzone, Kirby's Dreamland on the Game Boy, Kirby's Adventure on the NES, Alcahest. And then skipping ahead, we have Kirby Dreamland 3, the Crystal Shards on the 64, Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland on the GBA, Kirby's Squeak Squad on the Nintendo DS, Picross 3D, Kirby's Epic Yarn, Kirby's Return to Dreamland on the Wii, a lot of Kirby, Box Boy, Box Boy, Bye-Bye Box Boy, Team Kirby Clash Deluxe, Kirby's Blowout Blast, Kirby's Star Allies, and then lastly, Box Boy plus Box Girl on the Nintendo Switch. And there's a lot more in between all of those, but, you know, just kind of a quick rundown, because, you know, I'd imagine a lot of VGM heads probably already know what this guy's done. And this brings us to the last track I'm going to play for you, and this is the latest addition to my repertoire, if you would call it, you know, kind of the latest vinyl that got added to the jukebox that is my brain, and it's a mighty doozy of a tune. This is Rude Buster from Deltarune, composed by Toby Fox. And that was Rude Buster from Deltarune, composed by Toby Fox. And that there, folks, is what you call a mighty fine tune, I'll tell you what. And yeah, this one, I'd probably say it's kind of like on the same level as the Hydrocity themes. It's just kind of really a fun one to do. Yeah, it has a lot of those arpeggiations like in that background kind of going on like Kirby did, but not as intense, because like when I do it, it's not too focused on that bit. It's kind of more, I don't know how to explain it. Been saying that a lot today. And that is the truth, because I still don't know, like, how my head does it, how my brain does it, how my face does it. I have no answers for you. It's just, it just happens, and, I just go with it, and I have fun with it. And what else is pretty fun is this game, Deltarune, both chapters that we have so far. Last time I had it on was episode 2, the first shop themes episode I brought on Hip Shop, the shop theme that Ruxel Card has for you in the castle of the Queen in Chapter 2. But this is the main battle theme that plays throughout both chapters, and yeah, the game itself is kind of a breath of fresh air compared to Undertale, because it's instead of having to worry about all these weird little random things that happen to give you all these weird little events that can happen, and playing throughout multiple times to get each ending, and then getting all the weird little quirks and getting just that right ratio of random numbers and stuff to be able to see WD Gaster. But Deltarune, both chapters that we have so far are pretty straightforward, with a couple branching paths to a couple of hidden bosses. But other than that, though, it's a tight little package of just fun and delight. And at some point we're going to be getting not 1, not 2, but 3 chapters all at once. That'll be 3, 4, and 5. So Toby's working on it, I believe, and it's going to be great when it comes out. I'm going to enjoy it. But to be honest, the one thing I don't enjoy is the fandom that's kind of just spawned around both Undertale and Deltarune. I've talked about this before, and yeah, just if you want to just go down that crazy rabbit hole that Undertale created, check out Eyepatch Wolf's video about that. It's really fascinating. And speaking of fascinating, the guy that did the music and ultimately created this game, Toby Fox, is bit of an odd guy. He's started out doing ROM hacks of Earthbound and such games, and the one that really got him on the map was his Halloween hack of Earthbound, which created a whole new narrative and everything, and people are trying to tie that to Undertale because of some common things and stuff going on in there. But that aside, not only has he worked on Undertale and Deltarune, he has also done stuff for Homestuck, I think it is. I'm not too familiar with that. He has done music for a few of the Pokemon games, and actually created some tracks for the newest one coming out, Scarlet and Violet. That's what it is, Violet. Scarlet and Violet. That's about all I got for you on that. And we're coming to the end of the episode, getting close to closing time. So yeah, thank you for listening to me talk about these tracks I love, just beatboxing, kind of playing with and stuff. And yeah, I'm going to try to post more videos of myself doing this on, Instagram, Twitter, eventually YouTube. I don't know, but, doing more covers, just kind of off-the-cuff improv original stuff. And, yeah, just having fun. Just having fun with it. It's going to be fun times. So, yeah, I've been your host, Rage Cage. You've been, and this has been VG Emporium. And you can check out VG Emporium on all your favorite podcatchers, such as Spotify, Apple Music, Audible, Amazon Music, Google, as well as on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, where I release the videos. Is just it's just the music and the card I make and stuff. And then you can find myself, Rage Cage, on, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud with all my original music. And as for next week's episode, it's going to be about giant robots, basically. And, this one's kind of at the, not quite request, but suggestion of a few folks, other podcasters, as well as a recent music compo I kind of took part in September, which is around giant robot theme, and I'll be playing a few tracks from people that were a part of that as well. So look forward to that. All right, have yourself a good day.